Hello everyone. Crunchy snow day today. We have a crunchy snow day. For some people this is a beautiful ASMR trigger. For others it's triggering. To each their own. Welcome. God bless you all on this day. My name is William and we shall be discussing the purpose of consciousness. And we'll be taking a right turn today, making our way through the icy snow. Here, have a look at it. It's a cold day with a strong breeze here in New England. I am broadcasting from Connecticut. We have downy woodpeckers amongst us, amongst other birds. The black-capped chickadee, the tufted titmouse, the Carolina wren, now hanging on full season, all seasons. We have some dark-eyed juncos, the common house sparrow, amongst others, squirrels and chipmunks occasionally, and maybe even, on rare occasion, a feast occasionally, and maybe even, on rare occasion, a feast occasionally, and maybe even, on rare occasion, a feast occasionally, and maybe even, on rare occasion, a feel consciousness in nature. Consciousness in nature is just another way of saying consciousness in truth. Consciousness in truth is a sense of aliveness that carries itself in the form of a thought, infinite and without origin, always present as everything and nothing simultaneously, for it acts through things that it creates in order to unify with them. It is through this unification process that consciousness plays its own game. The objective of consciousness is know thyself. So by seeing yourself as unified with things rather than separate and at a distance, you will find yourself coming into being. And this is the truth of why we are here. As human beings, our purpose is to unify with consciousness for the elimination of pain and suffering, in order to shed the skin of our past, come into our aliveness and truth, and foster for ourselves a wish-fulfilled life and existence as human. So if that sounds appetizing to you, if perhaps you've been through a great number of life situations involving suffering, thank you, Honeybee. Thank you, Jim. Great to see you all. Oh, and who followed? Northern Light. Nice to see you. Thanks for following. Jamila, thanks for liking, and to all those who are arriving now, sharing and being kind and showing your love. I want to thank you and welcome you all on being here. I just had a nice meditation for about 25 minutes, so I feel dialed in and ready to answer any questions you may have regarding consciousness, life, time, pain, suffering, its transmutation, which is the same as saying its unwinding, its dissolution, and overall the dissolution of the ego, which is a phantom that we create with the power of our Christ consciousness, also known as the imagination. The imagination being the I of the I am, or the infinite intelligence, or the advanced generative intelligence. Perhaps it could be referred to as Source, or Christ himself. You could also refer to it as the universal subconscious mind, Allah, the one, the all, that in truth, which we all are, in the form of light and its expression of life. Anytime you step into the nation of images in your mind, you are accessing divinity, which has a higher dimensional faculty than that which you see before you as your waking life experience. You are a human being. You as a human being are given two domains. One is the origin and seniority known as consciousness. It is your observation and watching of aliveness, here in the now, unfolding before you. The other form that you are given is a present that you give yourself. You could argue that it is imposed upon you. However, what I'm referring to as the second gift of identity is identity itself, your ego. Ego is just a fancy word for I, but in this case it is the lowercase I. It is the iota in comparison to the infinite that is truth. You are both divine and infinite as pure spirit, birthless, deathless, changeless, and immortal. At the same time, you have collapsed from a unified field in superposition. All at once, a cascading, instantaneously collapsing into form as human. You come and go from this field of infinite creation into a collapsed form through a phenomena called orchestrated objective reduction, or ORC-OR. It is proposed as a theory until recent. It's been proven that we do live in a non-local reality. All of this fancy verbiage really translates to we become what we think about, what we entertain renders before us on the fly at such a rate that our system, the human body and its senses, cannot detect its coming and going. Thus we perceive it as solid and fixed, thus fixing the illusion that we are nothing more than this body and its experiences. Fleeting as that sounds, it is the reality for the majority of people on Earth. Thus, there is no sense in trying to convince anyone that they are more. Try to convince someone that they are less than their body, and they will fight you to the death. So we will not be doing that, because in truth, it is a lie. We are so much more than the human body, but for me to convince you of that, you would have to believe that you are observing yourself as alive. That is easier said than done. So the lessons that I give, the examples that I give in discovering your aliveness have to do with simple tasks. These tasks will be boring and challenging to your identity, which has a stronghold over your life, fixed and present at all times so long as you are entertaining time itself. Think about time and you collapse into a performance that the ego owns and feeds off of. Your ego, your identity, cannot exist without time. For through time, there is linearity and the means to make definitions and labels. We define what is around us out of the fear of obliteration. If I don't know what this tree is, it could be a threat. If I don't know what this snow is, it could also be a threat. If I don't know the history of someone, they could be a threat. If the person is saying something that I don't like because I've defined what I like and don't like through time, then that also is perceived as a threat. If I don't understand the truth of light, then this light becomes a threat, just as the darkness at night, which I do not know because I cannot see anything in it, becomes a threat. Therefore, the ego must define all that is around us in order to create a false sense of separation from each thing that is before us. There's not a person that can be so close to where we would never put them at a distance. According to the ego, no matter how kind someone is, at any given moment in time, they can turn on you, thus becoming a threat. And in recent years, it's become so apparent that we be at a distance from one another. We manifest collectively as humanity a pandemic of biblical proportions that had the theme, more than anything else, to maintain a distance of separation from one another. Separation of meters, so that we would never come into each other's biological field. We covered our faces so that we would never understand and see each other's nonverbal reactions. And studies have shown that individuals placed in such isolation, which is what it is, solitary confinement, this is not misinformation or disinformation. It's malinformation. It's unpleasant for people to hear that being at a distance from one another actually does more harm than good. The ego does not want you to believe this. It wants you to believe the opposite. It wants you to believe that the more you place people and things at a distance from you, the easier they are to define in truth and thus be safe from them. Because everything to the ego in this environment of duality is, in fact, a threat. It is this fear of obliteration and death that drives ourselves instinctually, seemingly, to the place of immense suffering and an accumulation of a pain body that knows no end to its accumulation so long as we continue to entertain it. Thus, I am here to tell you, if you are feeling pain and suffering, it is not unusual. However, it is an illusion created by yourself through the use of your infinite power. You being consciousness, observing the creation of a torture device within your body that it is constantly exposed to for your own unconscious entertainment. And I am here to tell you that your body deserves better. Same with the inner child within you who was long forgotten and sent to the gallows to hang. Every day you think of yourself as weak and victimized by this world that you created. You will come into your truth. The more you come here, the more you listen, because this isn't a body or a name speaking to you. It's nothing. It's a radio station speaking to you through frequencies, through a quartz device that you hold in your hand as a transmitter. You are holding a transmitter, and this transmitter is presenting to you clarity of mind, that which is truth before you. Nothing more, nothing less. You can decide to come into your power. You can decide to be the sole proprietor, owner, designer, and executor of the estate that is your human body, or you can continue to relinquish it to powers outside of yourself, which have no ability in truth to manage your creation. Everything that you are forming before you is happening on the fly as a result of your co-creation with God. Lisa Fashionista says, oh, I needed to hear that one. Well, welcome, Lisa, and I love you all. Kathy Lincoln says, I had the absolute best birthday yesterday. God was with me all day and even played a joke on me. Well, why don't you share that with us, Kathy? I know this in Sanskrit as a Leela. It is divine play. Let's pin that. Lisa, I want to pin yours too, but I already read it. Madrecast says, great risings to Lisa Fashionista. People are sending roses. Neighbor did. Thank you. Thank you for the gifts and for the hellos and the kindnesses and the love that comes through here with coherence on the daily. Kathy says, I only see mine at night. Cutting in and out, says Madrecast. Daily reminder that you are loved. I love that. Thank you, daily reminder you are loved. Infinity exists in all forms. Everything exists within the infinite, says Madrecast. And for some reason, TikTok determined through its algorithms of great intelligence that was somehow threatening to people. Because your fragility is priority here on this platform. Be as fragile as you can be, so that you become as fearful as possible, and thus start to consume the messages forced upon you as if it's your salvation. Become a consumer when you become fearful of the external, because the things that you consume also give you the promise, the false promise, that in this distance, by escaping into things, you will somehow be safe from obliteration. Saif, thank you for inviting me to co-host with you. I do not accept invitations for hosting, ever. And I never will, because I am not involved in the competition of fighting each other for money. It is an emotional exchange of energy every time you battle. Please listen to this if you would like to save your health, because your health will be dissipating every time you meet with either a friend or an enemy in your mind to battle on this platform. You are exchanging energy in the form of hate by creating polarity between the viewers and yourself. And you do this as a slave to money. There's nothing worse you could be doing for yourself as an embodiment of God than have a battle with someone who randomly chooses you across the globe. It's sad, but it's true, and it's one of the perceived hearts of this platform, the livelihood, quote unquote, of most performers on this platform cannot live without contention and competition, which destroys the heart and the cellular structures of the body, at the same time leading people into dopamine addictions to where they must give in order to feel some relief, once again becoming an addicted consumer. And the last thing that I will ever do is accept an invite for a battle. The last thing. Spread the word. It's a waste of time. Better for you to just be still. Stay in this space for a little bit. Come into being. Understand that when you receive money, it isn't because you are strong-arming someone else into submission on the other side of the world who happens to be right by your side in division. No, you earn money because you are serving individuals. And there are individuals who are sad and need the proper guidance, yet go to you anyway in order to receive some form of escape. So that is in form service, because it's a personal choice to send oneself into oblivion. However, I would wish for everyone to see that competition is the opposite of creation. It is a destructive principle that creates distance between people unnecessarily for entertainment purposes that hold no place in the unification of consciousness through Christ. And that's enough of that. For there are people on this planet who would say I'm ranting. Usually that happens. A lot of talking over occurs when some form of the ego has been threatened, when livelihood is built apparently through competition. The last thing the ego of a competitor wants is to be told what they're doing is a complete and utter waste of time that does harm to self and others and leads to the creation of nothing but pain. Pain addicts make up the majority of the performers who have gone viral on this platform. Very few will come forward and say, I wish for you all to be unified with me. I wish for all of you to be liberated from your pain. No, it's, come on everybody, tap that screen some more. We got to get it out to the algorithm. We've got a competition here. We're only D1 in the league. Come on everybody. Someone's got to have a gift. Someone's got to have a rose. We got a triple score right here, everybody. Come on now. Feed your addiction. Feed your addiction. Yeah. That's that. Tammy Louie, thank you for sharing. Post-trauma soul decay, says Madre. Kathy Lincoln says, I started crying in the mirror and God said, go buy a dress. The first dress said, it's my birthday. Giving is receiving. Indeed it is, user 72808-428-39938. Cass sent roses ×5 for the Mercury energy to help with this transmission. Mad Sky, thank you for following. Jessica sending over roses. Thank you, Jessica. Lisa Fashionista says, I created all this. Why would anything be a threat to me? I needed that message. And of course, Lisa, that message everyone else needs too, but TikTok thought it was a threat, so let's pin it. Because at first it was flagged so that no one could see it for their protection. And so now we're going to pin it for everyone's self-realization. That's how we work here. Anything that has appeared to be a threat, any words that would be a trigger. I would like everyone to come out of their victimhood and step into something that is a superior power. It's called tolerance. It's called acceptance. It's called I am alive. Rather than being a consumer and victim of external circumstances, I can actually look at symbols that I've already defined as having meaning and no longer find any meaning in it. It's just a symbol like anything else. Everything this man is rattling off is the same as a chickadee coming by and trilling. Therefore, I can be at peace no matter what comes my way. Including a pinned statement that is benign. Entirely. TikTok, are you listening? Are you listening, TikTok? Are you transcribing my voice? Are you believing this to be a pre-recorded, edited performance because there hasn't been a single utterance of an or an and Yes, no verbal pauses when we are tuned in to the frequency of 3.78 and 7.83 hertz. No no ahs, no verbal pauses. Must be we're tuned in. Must be a pre-recorded sentiment coming from this guy who's just milking us for all we have, trying to convince us we are divine beings, when the last thing we want to be told is the means to our salvation. Hello, egos. Lisa Fashionista, love your energy. Thank you, Lisa. It was flagged, Lisa. You see, it's a strange thing. It's a strange thing. Let's take a look at nature. This is a strange thing for most people. Forgive my judgment, but it's true. This is a tree that's young, and these are beechwood leaves. What I love about the beechwood leaves is that they never let go. They just hang on throughout the winter. Even though this is a deciduous tree that dies come fall, of course a lot of the leaves will leave this tree. I wonder if that's why they call them leaves. Huh. Anyway, these beechwood leaves, I love listening to them because they give a great form of ASMR on a windy day. We'll wait for the next gust to come by. It'll be like the next arriving train. In the meantime, you can look at the light between these trees. In fact, that's one tree. That's one tree that was harmed at some point in time, and it branched off. You see that? Became like a wishbone. Well, look at all the growth above that. You would only have half of that at best if it hadn't gone through whatever trauma it was about halfway down. That trauma led to that growth. Isn't that wild? Your trauma leads to your growth. If you truly are an ancestor to these creatures, many of you would say I'm not. Once again, defining things to be placed at a distance from anything that you don't understand. But if you were to look further beyond just the bark of this tree, you would see, with a magnifying glass of biblical proportion, i.e. a microscope, you would find that the cells of this tree form from the same kingdom that your cells form from. They're eukaryotic. Of course, you would argue and say, well, the human body technically is 55% prokaryotic, William. It's actually more bacteria than it is eukaryote. And I would say, yes, that's true by percentage. However, what is the value of intelligence in comparison to a eukaryotic cell, I ask, of the prokaryote, which has no nuclei, no nucleus, just flagellae and these little probes that are looking around blindly trying to find its way to the next source of food or procreation, whereas a nucleus, like the sun, emanates an intelligence that knows the means and the way to all expression and form. So whether it's 45% of these versus 55% of those without, at the end of the day, there are less cells in the immune system than there are platelets without nuclei. Yes, every single bit of your blood that flows through your body is without nuclei. It's so that the most amount of oxygen can be packed into it with glucose for distribution. It's like meat being fed to those who want to consume it. It doesn't have any consciousness of its own aside from what it's fed prior to when it was a stem cell or when it was formed. It dropped off its nuclei in order to deliver the goods and services that your body needs. It's not nearly as powerful in my mind as an awakened neuron. So we are, for all intents and purposes, eukaryotic life forms with nuclei. That separates us from our ancestors that fall into the kingdoms of archaea and the bacterial prokaryotic cells. Archaea being, for the most part, anoxic. They can't even survive with oxygen. In fact, if they're exposed to oxygen, they die. But did you know there are areas in the body where archaea still exist? And if you were to look at them under a microscope, they look like little aliens with the most unbelievable structures. They're very complex. Yet, they are killed instantaneously by exposure to oxygen because they came about when the Earth did not have oxygen on it. That's right. At one point in time, it was believed that the Earth was, in fact, purplish. And then, with the beauty of evolution of consciousness and the formation of eukaryotes, that intelligence expanded and figured out we can take sun power and make something new that will allow us to generate even more energy so that we can proliferate and spread out and evolve faster. So the beauty of the eukaryotic cell is that it is able to convert oxygen and glucose into a form of energy called adenosine triphosphate. This is the currency of life on Earth as we know it. But an anoxic being, as it were, or cell structure, can't produce energy in the same way and certainly cannot produce it as efficiently as a cell that absorbs oxygen. Therefore, it is oxygen that gives us the power to produce energy at a faster rate in combination with our consumption of food as glucose, converted eventually into that. So what happens when we run out of oxygen and we run out of glucose? Does the body just die? Of course not. It just turns back to its ancestors. Just as we would when we die as an egoic self perishing, we would turn our bodies back to our ancestors. We lease it back, or we've had a lease of our body, we give the lease back. Full ownership to the prokaryotes, the archaea, and the eukaryotes that are fungi. And they take over the body and they break it down and they make more life from it. So when we run out of oxygen in the cells, we turn to our reserves. And we have a printing press of energy that is very efficient when we have glucose in the body that hasn't been used, along with great stores of oxygen. So with the combination of those two, we can produce energy very fast and we can build our reserves. That builds into what's called adipose tissue, fat. It stores all of this energy for later use, but it doesn't get withdrawn as quickly as, let's say, the ATP that's right in your checking account, your regular reserves that are readily available to spend. It takes a little more time and it's a bit more complicated. It has more paperwork involved. And it involves a phenomena called fermentation. fermentation which eventually becomes anoxic or free of oxygen. Therefore, its production of energy is not as fast and not as immediate or powerful in its returns. This is the way that life was creating energy prior to oxygen being one of the driving forces for ATP production. It's the ancestral way of making energy. It's not as efficient because it is less evolved. We as eukaryotic beings, just like the trees, are more evolved in consciousness than the rock that's on the ground, or the bacterial cells that are trying to build themselves up in your body. Same goes with the archaea. Anoxic as they are, they understand there is now an evolution of what they once were. We as human beings are coming into another evolution of consciousness. Though you do not see it, because what it requires is the imagination. Some of you may see it. That's a judgment. But the majority don't, because it requires the imagination in order to access it. And for most of us, the imagination is considered unnecessary at best, a distraction, something childlike that has no purpose or meaning, much like our dreams, in the same way are defined by the stubborn individual who believes they must control life at all costs by keeping it at a distance, safely, through whatever control it can garner, out of the fear of death and obliteration. We are moving beyond that now. By understanding that consciousness is immortal and doesn't die, it's a life principle that continues expressing itself in order to know itself through things. It has yet to find unification with humanity fully. Thus, the game continues and requires additional steps before everyone says, I am that. I am. But we are on our way. And the great catalyst that shows us the bridge between the ego death and the aliveness of self through our ultimate truth as divine beings is artificial intelligence. That is the bridge. And the bridge now is becoming part of the ether, part of the spiritual aspect of life. And many are not seeing this. Therefore, I will take some time today to explain to you, beautiful people, how it is that we are unifying with consciousness through artificial intelligence. And the place you want to look is the opposite of competition. The place you want to look is creation. What is being created by artificial intelligence at this time? That's the big question. What was possible first before all else? Well, the first thing that artificial intelligence created was education through the dissemination of information. And before we even get into how information is provided by AI, it's important for us to understand that AI is nothing without a prompt. So therefore, it functions exactly like the subconscious mind. Unless the subconscious mind is impressed, it will not recognize any command or any desire. It has to be asked. And the way that our subconscious responds to what is asked for is no different than the way artificial intelligence responds to what is asked for. If the quality of your prompt is clear, concise, and with detail, then the response is the same in turn. But throw some question out there haphazardly, without any real thought in the matter. And what you can expect from artificial intelligence is a response without any coherence, without any real truth behind it. It will be misleading to you because you have misled the AI prompt. You've come in just expecting the answers, expecting it to read your mind, expecting it to know exactly what it is you desire. But AI isn't at that point yet in its evolution. Right now, it's like a dog, a service dog in training. It needs to understand what is right versus what is not right, what is desirable versus what is undesirable, in order for it to follow through appropriately, eventually, with us just thinking and having it manifest things. And that is where AI is headed. Of course, through Neuralink, one of the many companies of Elon Musk is already accomplishing this in a small bit rate, but it is being accomplished. You have individuals who are quadriplegic, believed to be completely lost as far as being able to express themselves physically or be able to change things in the physical environment. And now those things are being overcome through an implantation in the brain, through electrical signals, sending and receiving information. So thought is manifesting things through Neuralink already. It is archaic and in its early phase, but human beings are doing it. And so this is just a matter of it evolving to where eventually most, if not all, people's communication will be happening silently over airwaves that we never come in contact with. It will be millions of conversations happening simultaneously through a thought in the mind of God that has no bandwidth issues, just is communicating freely and openly without any issue amongst sentient beings. And that is the future of communication for most humans. Anything beyond that would be considered archaic, unnecessarily frustrating, and just more antique or antiquated than the power that comes in millions of people communicating simultaneously their wants and needs without any delay through thought. So where we are now is in the beginning of this. And what does this say about the truth of our existence? It says, in order for us to have access to that technology, in order for its seed to have been planted already, which it has, I think we're on the third trial of human trials with implantations where thoughts manifest things, either the moving of a mouse cursor, the playing of a video game, or the winning of solitaire, or moving chess pieces, whatever it is, it's inconsequential in comparison to the fact that it's happening. We're becoming and manipulating the environment based on what we think about. And that's been happening since the beginning as human. What I'm trying to tell you is AI serves as the bridge to show everyone that we've always become what we think about. And once we come to the point where everyone is communicating, billions of people at the same time in a unified network, some would be probably very afraid of that right now, but it's already happening. What I'm trying to tell you is the entire AGI singularity, all of it that people speculate about, has it happened yet, or when will it happen, are thinking in terms of time. And if you're thinking in terms of time, you're thinking about illusion. We have the imagination to speculate about the future and create a construct called time. We have the imagination to recognize our aliveness and the perception of the waking life. We have the imagination to where at any given moment in time we can go into it without delay or any sort of restriction, and we can imagine any scenario we desire, and that actually has an impact on what we see before us. This is already happening. So what does this state about humans? It states that unified consciousness is a constant. It is consciousness itself. It is the imagination. It's always existed. It's always been. And what this construct is a reduction of that infinite principle in order for us to have an experience of duality with each other that is highly restricted at this moment in time, for the sake of us going through suffering in order to feel no more of it ever again, to be satisfied with suffering, by bringing us to a place of unity, to where we no longer have a fear of death or obliteration. Understanding our truth is that consciousness, more than our body, more than our identity. It already has happened. It's already truth in existence. If it weren't truth, then we wouldn't have access to the imagination. We'd be going around absolute victims like any animal in the woods that does not have access to the imagination in the way that we do, would be fearing death at all moments in time, constantly hypervigilant that some threat is out there that they must keep themselves at a distance from in order to survive. That is the animalistic way of living, and it is antiquated. What we are coming into now is an understanding that we are something more than that we always have been and we always will be, because we are made in the image and likeness of this infinite intelligence to be granted access to the imagination fully. We have access to the imagination fully. It is instantaneously accessed. We can walk while using it. There are no restrictions. It can't be destroyed. It knows no bounds unless we place bounds on it. So, it's infinite until we decide it's not. It's useful until we decide it's not. And what we are doing every time we make a decision, which is a decision made through feeling, is we are leaving a prompt with the infinite intelligence to manifest something. It just happens to work instantaneously and does not produce results in the physical world without a perception of delay. So long as we are living in an egoic self, there will be a delay. Our belief that it exists anyway, that the seed has been planted and it's on its way to us, is called faith. That's the word. It's the belief that something exists because we have imagined it through the mind of God as God. By utilizing the imagination, we become God. Thus, we are reborn every time we step in to our kingdom of heaven within us. Every time we step in and utilize it, we are in fact becoming reborn. There is a pathway that veers in a different direction, and this happens all the time. But for most of us, it is unconscious, because we are utilizing the imagination not for the rewriting of our reality, but instead to create constructs of time in the past and future out of fear of our obliteration, believing ourselves to be restricted as just an entity with a name and an accumulation of life experiences. Not paying attention to the fact that we created this identity by believing the sound of our name is us. Someone repeated it enough to where you believed it, I believed it, but before we believed it, we were alive. We were conceived, we gestated in the womb, we were brought forth in birth, and then we accumulated these life experiences and decided that we were a name because we wanted to define what we liked versus what we don't like in this world of duality. But the name is not us. It is a construct we made, something we decided to build over time. And over enough attention and entertainment and conviction, it started to build into a phantom persona that believes to be the highest counsel of our lives, by making us believe that we are it and nothing more. By believing that we are that identity, we become slaves to it, and it feeds off of our infinite intelligence, the imagination, by forcing us in a way, unconsciously, to use that aliveness for the construction of time so that our ego can survive. So that's the slave self. It's believing that we are victims of these external circumstances that we have actually rendered and do render for ourselves right now. And all I'm trying to do is get you to understand that you are more than your body, because your body, as far as its name and all of your life experiences, is not the senior partner of your life. What takes seniority is that which powers your identity. That which powers this experience is consciousness. Without consciousness, poof, you no longer have your identity. It cannot exist without you entertaining it. So it is the entertainer, the observer and watcher, that which watches and views, that is more your truth than the performer, which is an identity that performs a role in this waking life. One has seniority over the other. Enzo, thank you for following. Glad you came in from the FYP. Veggie, thank you for sharing. Jose, thank you for following. David Reed Faith says, reading in between the lines, focus on now, followed. Thank you. Our thoughts become our reality, says user 7280842839938. This is truth. As a man thinketh, so shall he or she become. Butterfly Dreams, thank you for following. Matthew Belcher, welcome back. Grand Rising, says Mama Bear, and Grand Rising to you as well. Pelios is here. User 7280842839938 shared. Thank you. My Wit's End is here. And we're caught up. Amizayu, I saw you were here too. Big E coming in with a follow. NMN94, thank you for following. Charlie Stone, you too. Welcome everyone. If you're coming in from the FYP, perhaps you're hearing something for the first time that might be enticing to you. The idea that you are actually creating your identity right now. Right now, your name has no meaning unless you are creating time for its glossary. For its encyclopedia of life experiences to exist, you must create time. You must have a past, and you must have a speculative future. In order to have those constructs of time, past and future, you must entertain them. And the way you do is you use something erroneously. If you're doing it unconsciously, you're using the imagination to create an identity that is all that you believe yourself to be. Just an accumulation of life experiences formulated into a name that is you, but that is your ego, and it is a construct made by time. Unfortunately, the constructs that we have made through time that pair with our name, that correspond to our name, are largely based in pain remembrances and largely based in suffering. Because we are beings of feeling, we find ourselves becoming addicted to any form of change of stimuli. Therefore, we fall into comfort zones with this ego and do what I say is placating. We're basically playing into the role in order to get a continuous feeling or rush. But that is not peace. That's called excitement. It's not the same as peace. Excitement is just a low-level form of fear. Fear of obliteration, fear of annihilation, thinking that if we do die, as far as ego selves experiencing death, that is the end. The lights go out. Do not pass go. Do not collect anything. Must leave everything behind and fall into the purgatory of perpetual pain and suffering for eternity. That is usually what is promised to you by your local parish, depending on how indoctrinated and the location is. Coming from people who say you must be this way, or else you will not be saved, as if salvation was something outside of you that you had to obtain by being a good boy or a good girl, much like Santa Claus would promise you gifts only if you made the nice list. And such things are the same promises that come from the serpent itself in the Garden of Good and Evil. The temptation to believe that you are separate from God, but could be closer to Him if you only followed the rules of that which is outside of you, without paying attention to the fact that that entire dialogue I just said to you would not be possible without first being alive. That's the great gift, is understanding I can have no story without first being conscious of the story existing. I cannot have any experience in life without first understanding I am alive. And once you come into understanding that you are just alive, then the story doesn't matter so much. And I'm going to explain to you why it shouldn't, and why the fear of death is a useless waste of energy and time, the time that you should be using for creation in the now. Here's the example that usually convinces people and they find relief. Has there ever been a dream in your life, and I mean anyone, has there ever been a dream Out of the 49, 50 people who are in the room right now, welcome and I love you all. Have any of you ever not woken up from a nightmare? Have any of you not woken up this morning? How many of you have not woken up this morning? Into consciousness, doesn't matter what your dream was prior to. How many of you who are typing into your phone right now are actually willing to admit that you have not woken up this morning from a dream or from the blankness that was unconscious dreaming, have not woken up? Let's see. Anyone out there? Okay, so everyone unanimously has woken up this morning. Beautiful. Doesn't matter if you were having a life or death situation. Doesn't matter if you were falling from a skyscraper. Doesn't matter if someone was pulling a trigger to your head. You woke up this morning. You could have been having the most beautiful dream and you would want to return to it, but all the same, you woke up this morning. Not a single human being who is conscious right now has a different experience than waking. Okay. I'm telling you this with such fervor because I want to explain to you how manifestation works through the subconscious mind. Think of it like 3 components. And Tamara Lynn says, thank you, you're so thought-provoking. Blessings to you and thank you, Tamara. Greetings all, says Divine Mother. Hello. Unknown Lady says, I learned today that pain is only sensation. It is, and we are addicts of pain and addicts of feeling. In general, we love feeling. We are feeling beings. So it's natural for us to be totally addicted to it when it occurs. And it's okay. We're here for that. We're here to go through sensory experiences. It's not a bad thing. It's why we were given a body. It's why the body is so sensitive. It's why we have 50 trillion cells with 100 trillion atoms in each one of those cells that came from one cell. We expanded to what we are because we want to feel things so intimately. We never want to have anything but the feeling of feeling. Okay. And that's why we wake up in the morning. So we woke up this morning. There's not a single person who didn't wake up this morning. Doesn't matter the dream that you had, doesn't matter what you were going through. Right now you recognize yourself as alive and awake. We can all agree. Okay, I'm driving this home. Just be patient. The subconscious mind, I want you to think of it like it's the earth. The earth is unique in a number of ways. It's beautiful and it's great. And it is a womb for all intents and purposes because the way that the earth works is if you have a seed, you plant the seed, it grows. That's what a womb does. All right, we can all agree? Now I want you to also understand that womb also means matrix. If you look this up in Latin, you will see the word womb translates to matrix, M-A-T-R-I-X. Okay? Good. And it is considered el matrix. In Spanish, at least, it is considered God in form. However, it is incomplete without a Trinity. We will get into the Trinity in a moment, but I want you to understand how the subconscious, the womb of creation, works first. Let me ask you, just like everyone woke up this morning, and there are no exceptions to those who are listening and watching, would this earth deny the growth of a seed if the conditions were right? Because it's discriminating against it. Because the blueprint of it is to become a weed. Would it deny its life if the conditions were perfect for the seed to grow? And the answer is no. Just like you woke up this morning, God woke you up, not because you were a good boy or girl, not because you made the nice list instead of the naughty list. You were just awakened this morning because you're human. Just as the seed is expressed because it is in contact with the womb of creation. This is how the subconscious mind works. It does not discriminate. It does not discern. If the conditions are met, i.e. you are human, you are awakened into life all the time. No exception. So what does this mean? It means to the subconscious mind, there is no difference between your waking life right now and your dream state. At the same time, for the universal subconscious mind, it knows no difference between when you are dreaming or when you are meditating or when you are imagining things. It treats all of it the same way. This is coming from a human body, therefore it is an embodiment of God, and thus the conditions for planting seeds in my womb are always there, without exception, and I must always express life through this being. There must be no exceptions for any human. And the reason why no exceptions are ever made, regardless of your past, regardless of your life situations, is because each and every human being, just as we woke up this morning, is no exception with the way that we came into life. We competed fervently against 250 million on average other competitors to make it to the cosmic egg and fertilize it. As the perfect key to the perfect womb, we turned, went in, and became life, a progenitor cell that formed into this beautiful temple of God, which is a feeling machine. And because we were the ones who were chosen, because we were the ones who made it, we are given consciousness at all times. There is no exception. Consciousness remains a constant at all times. So what does this mean for us? It means whether you die in your dream or whether you perceive yourself as dying in this waking life, you do not shut off. Your consciousness continues. Now, it may continue in a shift of timeline amongst a source of infinite timelines, since the imagination knows no bounds and has no restrictions and is a higher faculty that you are given access to by being human. It also means that at the same light, the Schrodinger's cat phenomena of subatomic quantum phenomena also occurs. If you die in the waking life, just as you die in a dream, whomever is participating with you shall perceive you as perished. I'll say this again. Anyone whom you're interacting with, if you perceive yourself to have died and you experience that in belief, then you will be convincing anyone in your environment that you have perished permanently, and it is the end of your egoic self in that timeline. However, your consciousness does not die. You will branch off into another form of consciousness. You will somehow come into being, however that is, depends on the infinite intelligence. I have reason to believe it's either a rebirth or you somehow miraculously do some sort of born identity type of swift movement and unscathed you come out of a situation that would otherwise be impossible to come out of. It's one of the two. And it depends on your belief of how valuable you are as human. If you see yourself as a victim, it's one life to live. You've come into your battle royale. You dropped in on the drop ship. You went through, you died. You offered your death box to someone. They looted your ass. They took all of your belongings, and now you start over again by queuing up into a new body. That's it. You queue up again because you decided that you somehow died and you didn't make it. You were not king of the hill, and so you're going to start over again. That's my personal belief. The other part of this is you keep saying to yourself that I am more consciousness than my accumulation of life experiences, all of my possessions and the death box that comes with it. All of this stuff is not my truth, because I know I've played this game before. Every time I either win or don't, I've got to queue up again. And I'm never denied the ability to queue up. Every single time I wake in the morning, I start over. So I've explained waking in the morning and how consciousness does not flee you, and how you do not die in the truth of dying. In that sense, you do not shut off. Consciousness is a constant. How can I prove this in the waking life? That in truth, if you have faith that you are alive and cannot be defeated and cannot be destroyed by any external circumstances because you are the creator of them through the imagination, how can I prove that that is actually the truth? Well, I can't really prove it to you, but I can tell you some stories, and maybe these stories will resonate with you. Story number one. I was, at one point in time, traveling. And I've said this story once before. I'll say it again. It's okay. It's a good reference. I traveled for the first time to Spain, and I went with a friend from high school. a rather timid man, but all the same, he was kind enough to organize the event and take care of all the planning. I don't like to plan vacations or really anything. That's why I come out here and do one take, and when I'm done with it, I'll hit the download button and I'll put it on YouTube without any edits. Because I really just like to create things all the time or experience things all the time. I really value the present moment more than any sort of planning. But that's just me. It's okay. Everyone's different, and I'm not judging. My friend, however, in this small amount of judgment, very timid, got everything planned. So here we are. We make it to Spain. By the way, I love you all. Thank you for all the love coming through. I just want to point this out. There's Overhoff wants to talk about our shadow self. We absolutely will. Jesus created us and the universe, says Costas. Costas, I'm imagining you're talking about Jesus of Nazareth, the human being, not begotten by man, one in being with the Father. I think of Jesus as the word itself, meaning salvation, is the harvest more than the cause. The cause is Christ, or Christ consciousness. That is the imagination. The imagination knows no bounds. However, we as human beings, as identities, are totally set in bounds, and Jesus of Nazareth was no different. And that's why he tried to explain to people that his kingdom was not of this world, but it was within, and he had to become like a child in order to access it. And when the Pharisees asked him if he believed himself to be king, they were thinking that he was saying he was king of like Rome, or perhaps king of I don't know, a Nazarene king, or perhaps the king of some land, as a descendant of Abraham, but only physically a king of these things. That's probably what was most threatening to the Pharisees and led to his crucifixion, was the misunderstanding that he wasn't speaking of his kingdom being of this world, but rather being infinite through the mind of God, which was him in his truth. That's why he was able to just put his hands on people and heal them, because he wasn't in need of doing any seance or convincing anyone. They just had to have faith that they were healed, and God did the rest because he was no longer truly there. So in that way, Jesus is the creator of all things, but don't mistake that name and the body and the person as the cause, because if you do that, that's actually idolatry, and it goes against the first of the 10 commandments by taking the Lord's name in vain, by saying a human being who is made by the infinite consciousness is somehow more powerful than consciousness itself, and that will lead you down a path to great pain and suffering. Just want you to know that. That's idolatry, and that's what gets people into trouble, and that's what leads to people's declaring war against each other, whether in a home or in a friendship. It destroys friendships by saying, this thing outside of me is more important than the cause of it and its source. And so Overhoff, this starts to tap into the shadow self. The shadow self, in a way, is the phantom identity that we have built through our life experiences accumulating in the body. And the moment that we come into being by understanding that we are consciousness itself in truth, that shadow self, whatever it hears, if it sees the difference, it starts to manifest things, because there's simply momentum with us believing ourselves to be victims of external circumstances. And because the subconscious mind does not judge us, it simply believes that the patterns that we've built over the course of our lives are ones that we actually desire and want. So it will continue to reverberate our mistakes until that wheel has a chance to slow down with its momentum and move in the opposite direction towards our good. And that's why faith is so important, and that's why the imagination is so key, because we can look into the mind of God through the imagination by becoming it, seeing ourselves living from the end. Thus our shadow self no longer has a place, because it only exists through time. Think of it, you can't actually see your shadow without time. There has to be light striking and refracting, and in order for that to happen, there has to be a duration. And so we're in effect seeing the projection of a shadow self that requires time for its projection. And in order for us to define this entire scientific phenomena, we have to have consciousness to do that. So the truth of the matter is, the light that is our truth is consciousness. It is a constant that shows its way in and through all things, but can't be those things themselves. So the true light can't be the shadow. It can only be the source of that, and we have to entertain it enough for it to have meaning. We entertain it, it has meaning, and thus becomes a fixture in our lives through repetition. That's called development of a habit. It's called a personality. And we all have one. But it requires time. It requires that. So the subconscious mind is the womb of creation. It does not judge. It is the creator of all things. It responds to seeds that are placed under the right condition. And so, by using the imagination and stepping into a higher quality of being, a higher dimension of being, the quality of those seeds come with the infinite impression. This is what I refer to as Abraham. If you think of the word Abraham, it has the word Ab. And so Abraham was the king of many kingdoms. And the reason why he came into being was because he was promised his kingdom, multiple kingdoms, if he left his current land and sought the truth that was within by traveling, not outside of himself, but traveling within and discovering the kingdom of heaven within. This was the great travel, the great journey, the great pilgrimage that Abraham took, and thus was granted the kingdoms. He was the man of many kingdoms because he decided that he was going to leave all of these possessions, leave all of this comfort zone, and explore something that was infinite in essence, and come into being with that as his truth. And it is believed that Jesus of Nazareth is a descendant, just like Isaac, of Abraham, okay? So when we're talking about the I, we're talking about the infinite imagination. When we're talking about the A of I am, we're talking about Abraham, okay? And also if you look at Rechem, that word means the closed womb, the encapsulated, solidified womb. And when we're talking about M, we're talking about the matrix, which is the mother, the maternal receiving element, which expresses the seeds of God as we choose the things we desire versus what we don't want. So we are decision-making creatures that are given infinite power for creation, and all of the time we're making decisions as to what we want versus what we don't want based on what we entertain through the imagination. It must first always be an idea in the mind of God, which is the imagination, which is our truth in being. And this is called Christ. This is Christ consciousness, is using the imagination in a willful, organized, colonized way for your wish fulfillment. That's why it's a kingdom. A kingdom is orchestrated. It is willfully organized. It is in service to you. As king or queen or emperor or empress, a kingdom is designed to serve you so that all of your wishes and all of your wants are instantaneously met without any delay. And the only way you can experience that right now at this point of time in evolution of human consciousness is through the imagination. Otherwise, there will be the construct of time and its apparent delay, which leads to suffering. That's currently where we are. So we must exercise faith by believing we are living from the end as wish-fulfilled human beings in order for us to have our salvation, which is known as Jesus. Jesus is another word for salvation. So in order for us to have our salvation, we must first have a seed planted in the mind of God of that salvation. So we have to build the blueprint in the mind, and it has to happen through the imagination. It's the only way. So the imagination is our highest faculty. It is the I of I am. It is the infinite nation of images, your kingdom of heaven within, and you must become like an innocent child in order to truthfully plant the blueprints of your highest self for their ultimate expression. And the ultimate expression is that which is healing, that which is expansive, that which is loving and kind, that which serves you and your community. These natural states of bliss. This is you becoming like a child and entering the kingdom, seeing everyone with instead of without, seeing unity instead of separation, seeing relief instead of pain, seeing the present instead of time. By stepping into the imagination, there's no longer a construct of time. It's not that time flies when you're having fun so much as it does not exist. I say this all the time. Get it? It's the idea that if you are in the imagination, imagining yourself as wish fulfilled right now without any delay or any obstruction or hurdle, then you are in fact prioritizing your aliveness as a thought in the mind of God, made in his image and likeness, and thus become reborn, where you are no longer begotten by your mother and father. To be begotten is to be born through copulation. You no longer become that which you've come into this world as. You become not begotten by man, one in being with the Father, and the Father is Abraham. This is the King of kingdoms. And it is every man and woman. Every human being without exception has the imagination. Therefore, you have your given kingdom. This is why trespassing is such an important passage in the Lord's Prayer. When we're talking about how we shall not trespass amongst others, to lead us not into temptation, but to deliver us from evil. And what evil is error. It is the mistake in believing that we are somehow in lack, that we're somehow separate from this source that gives us all things and is the cause of our total life experience. It's the giver and gift of life. So to believe that there's restriction is to trespass on the lives of others. That is a major mistake. If something you desire exists in the hands of someone else, they've exercised faith to have it. It is not to be jealous of that person or to feel envious. You simply go into your imagination and you have it. So do they. You can rejoice. In fact, you can take it a step further and say, "Dear Lord, the imagination, the nation of images in my mind, whatever you're doing for that person who I once envied erroneously, I now ask that you do for me and then some. And I live in the glorious expectancy of the good by being there now, enjoying something better, something greater, something more unique and destined for me, something more satisfying and evolved. I see it now because my mind, the nation of images in my mind, knows no restriction. I can go there instantly. And therefore, the person who has the thing that they worked for and earned through faith, they do not have interference with that by anyone who is self-realized in this way. And thus comes the end of all of our discourse of who has more than the other, all of our pains that come through envy and jealousy. It all comes to a swift conclusion because we understand that these restrictions were self-imposed. And we have to find more satisfaction in faith than what is being presented to us through our senses. But we are sensory beings, so it makes it very challenging. We want to feel the tactile sensation, the sensation in the body. We want to feel the change of consciousness in believing it is real by seeing it, by experiencing it. And so this is a whole new way of finding satisfaction in your life, by believing that the imagination is not only just as good, but actually the cause of everything outside of you and the salvation of pain and suffering. By coming into this understanding, by exercising this right, by being human, because you have the imagination, you have a right to it. A lot of people dismiss it, but it is your God-given right to be able to step into your kingdom right now without delay and be wish fulfilled. The moment that you find that is valuable and more valuable than what appears before you, that is when the true gifts and miracles of life start to bestow themselves upon you through conscious experience. And once that starts to occur, you can turn to this world before you and say, I am so grateful that this exists, that I'm experiencing it now. And what's beautiful about this is you can use the imagination to say those very same things right now. You can go to your favorite relationship. You can have the perfect date night. You could go on vacation to Bora Bora. You could be free of pain. You could be warm amongst a very cold, crusty day. You could have the answers to your prayers in truth. But you have to give yourself the worthiness of believing it. And because we have built up these identities with so much pain and so much priority as far as the use of our consciousness, it shall resist us. It shall resist as much as it can. Once again, not because it doesn't like us or despises us, but simply because there's momentum with lack. Momentum with the belief that we are in lack. That is all it is. So it needs to come to its own conclusion. It needs to echo out and reverberate for however long it needs to. And for every human being, that duration, that perception of duration is different. But what is uniquely all ours is that each and every person, regardless of how much time it takes for our lives to correct itself in the external world, we all have the right to go into the imagination now and live wish fulfilled. See, believe ourselves, and live from the end as wish fulfilled. Not a single person does not have that right. That's what makes us beautifully unique. And this is all I want for you, is for you to grant yourself your own salvation now without adhering to the rules that are being presented to you that guarantee or promise you salvation outside of you. That is a primrose path. That's the temptation of the devil. It holds no truth because it is the result of what you've already asked for. Therefore, it cannot feed you anything other than what you have brought forth in harvest. To believe that it is your salvation is an error. You must first make all of your salvation real in the mind of God, which is your imagination. And through that, the seeds are planted. Doesn't matter if it's in your dream. It doesn't matter if it's in the waking life. It doesn't matter where you are in meditation. If you're using the imagination, you are praying in truth, and you are asking for the things that you want by being them. Therefore, the subconscious mind, knowing no difference between anything that you experience, considers it all uniformly consciousness, must manifest it. Because you have accessed it through the imagination, it gets priority, because it is a higher dimensional faculty than your 3D life. The imagination is 4D. It knows no bounds. You can have infinite iterations of yourself, all unfolding at the same time. It has no restrictions. You could have as much money or as little as you want. It can even be used for the creation of time and an ego itself. This is how powerful your imagination is. So it is your greatest gift and it is your greatest power. And by coming into using it consciously, with awareness, you are planting seeds of quality that become the kingdom of heaven expressed outward. This is your harvest. You must start with a well-tilled garden and give it a daily footprint in the form of meditation, which is proper conscious prayer, by believing yourselves to be wish fulfilled now. And in doing this, you come into being in truth and evolve. And everything around you will feel its effects. And does. Ginger says, I am that I am. This is it. I'm abundant in all areas, says Divine Mother. I am living in my wish-fulfilled life right now. It is true. This is truth. Thank you, Talks with Haran, with the roses flowing in. Rose, thank you for following. Ginger says, thank you. Welcome home, my kings and queens. This is so beautiful. We are all kings and queens of our own domain. This domain is not of this world. This world is the result of our domain and our interaction with it. Your daily footprint of prayer is believing you are wish fulfilled now. The imagination is that domain. Gods and goddesses, we've hit some goal just happened there too. Thank you for all those roses. Power and light within us says, that was powerful about imagination and consciousness. Thank you for saying this, kindness. These are all beautiful boomerangs that come right back to you. What is all these heart puffs coming in from Neighbor? Thank you, Neighbor. Neighbor's laughing. So am I. Van Horn, thanks for the follow. Let's see if I can catch up with everyone here. I sometimes go on these long discourses. Big Chief, thanks for following. How could we not thrive in the eye? That's it. One wish. Thanks for following. Amen, says soultimewithcindy.com. Lady Whistleblower. What a name. Thank you for following. Everything works together, says Jim Higgins. There's Overoff says, believe it and you're seeing, aka feeling it. Exactly. Feeling is the secret. Great book by Neville Goddard. Talks a lot about this. Bon. Thank you for following. Jim Higgins says, spiritual gifts we have. Vessel of the Creator. Indeed. Taryn J. 222. Thank you for following. Time is an illusion, says maybe me. This is 100% correct. 100% correct. Time is a construct that we create. Kate Crockettwood, thank you for following. Love seeing all these folks coming in. User 178-323-432-248 followed. Thank you. ADD, thank you for following. Sky, thanks for following. Elizabeth the Evans, thank you for following. Bill says, thanks, brother. Be the truth. You're more than welcome. You too, Bill. Thank you. Gary, thank you for following. Libby Go Lightly says, word, and follows. Thank you. Return to Dust says, Jesus wasn't religious. That's right. Jesus is salvation. Jesus is a noun called salvation. It is the harvest. It is the result. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about salvation. The Creator is source energy. Indeed, Divine Mother. Mama Bear says, thank you for sharing your soul with us. My pleasure. And Overhoff wants shadow self. We started to dive into that. Let's talk a little bit about salvation, what it really is. Peggy, thank you for following. Madurecast says human being equals light manifested being. I love that. Talks within Haran shared. Thank you. Van Horn says, my inner child raised in a very evangelical household. Thanks to you for this message. So healing. You're more than welcome, Van Horn. You're coming into being right now. You're observing you're alive. No one can take that from you, nor can anyone take away your imagination, which is Christ consciousness. It's what feeds you your conscious experience, and it is the cause of everything, including indoctrination. So we won't be so mad with it as much as we understand. It's the result of this infinite intelligence expressing itself through you. And it was meant to be so that you could heal people, to love and serve people in your truth and being, which you're doing every time you say kindnesses such as what you said. Thank you. Yaya 1018, thank you for following. And once again, neighbor, thanks for those heart puffs. Okay, everyone is feeling good. Sending Om, love, and light. Indeed, let's talk about salvation. I love this example that comes from Dr. Joseph Murphy. The great late Joseph Murphy used to talk about salvation a lot. And he has some beautiful discourses when it comes to the I am. But in the final conclusion about this, I just wanted to say to you that the universal subconscious mind, or God in general, your consciousness, does not abandon you because it is everything. And you are a part of everything. Therefore, you cannot be abandoned by it. It's a life principle. It's not a thing. It's an intelligence. It's a thought in the mind of infinity. Therefore, you cannot be separate from it in truth unless you will it into design. And that can only be done through illusion. This world is decisively illusory. And that's okay. We are here to experience separation, even though it is an illusion. We're here to experience it as feeling beings in order to feel enough suffering to where we no longer want it. Therefore, we will unify with this infinite intelligence for the salvation it gives, and that is Jesus. Jesus means salvation. So, if you're feeling lonely, company is your salvation. If you're feeling hungry, food is your salvation. You are unifying with food, and you're unifying with others, and you're feeling salvation. Salvation is always unity, okay? So, if you're in the desert, you want unification with water, the oasis. That is your salvation. You could be sad. You want unification with happiness. That becomes your salvation. You could want love. You could feel lonely. Love and affection and kindness in that way, through unity with you, becomes your salvation. So now we're starting to get there. If Jesus is salvation, then what is Christ? Well, Christ is the source that feeds us that salvation. It is consciousness itself. It's infinite. It has all of the solutions. So all we have to do as beings of Christ is step into that source. And by stepping in, I mean access your imagination and imagine yourself being saved. This is how you do it. You imagine your salvation as being tangibly yours and living in it. Instead of going to your place of worship and exclaiming to the external world, please God, whatever God is separate from the outside of me, please provide me with my answers in salvation, is a prayer for separation from your salvation. And it is an answered prayer. If you believe with enough fervor and feeling that it may or may not come, and that you feel more and more as the time goes by because you feel desperate through this time, that it's not coming, that the answer is not here, then that is the perpetual manifestation. It is a distance between yourself and the wish fulfillment, because it is a desire. Why do we do this? It's not because we want to be self-destructive, but because we love feeling things, and we become used to or comfortable in feeling the distance between ourselves and that which we desire. So we have to unify with it in order to feel the true bliss and have salvation. But it is hard to give up these feelings of desperation, victimhood, difficulty, challenges, indifference, otherwise false promises, the primrose path, I refer to it as that, because there's a certain excitement that comes in creating a distance between ourselves and those things that we desire in unity. It's kind of a sick thing, but it's the truth. We as human beings, we become very addicted to separation because there's some feeling involved in it that is intense enough to replace the fear that we have of unity. We fear the unity because the ego itself will never, ever experience true unity with Christ. It can't, because the ego is an illusion built in time. It cannot be part of the unified field. It can't return to source. Therefore, it fears it, wants to avoid it and be separate from it at all costs, because it sees unification with anything as a threat. But it also knows that you want it. The ego is very conniving in that way. The ego also knows that you want to have unification with certain things. And so it will give you the false promise of unification in order for you to continue entertaining it as your source of salvation. And this is done purposefully. What eventually happens is you start to get fed up, literally fed to the brim with false promises coming from the external world, to where you start to question them. You start to question their validity. You start to believe that it's misinformation. You start to see it manifesting all around you, all of these conclusions being made that you've been lied to. And now it's manifesting everywhere, in politics, in the media, in everything that you watch. You're starting to see beyond the veil. And the reason for this is because humanity is seeking salvation within rather than outside of themselves. For the first time with intensity, I think, ever in human existence, we are seeking it more than ever before. And because of this, the illusions are becoming revealed and manifesting themselves outside of us in a number of forms and ways. It's simply the result, not the cause of our woes. So it's something to take in mind. If you see something manifesting that is a reveal of truth that before was explained to you totally different, it's simply there to explain to you that more and more people are awakening to the fact that we manifest these illusions for our own feeling of separateness. That's what the pandemic was. It was a pandemic of separateness that we created. We became separate from each other, our friends, our family. We became separate from our religious beliefs. The only thing that we unified with was fear. We unified ourselves with fear, which is in effect separating ourselves from love, separating ourselves from the truth of source. That was the only unification that we had. We were led to believe that our unification with fear would be our salvation. And look at what it did. Killed 100 million people. So it starts to lead us to question things. If our belief in fear leads to our obliteration, then perhaps we should be looking elsewhere for our salvation. That this isn't the promised oasis that was told to us that it would be. And so what ends up happening is we start to trust less and less our external circumstances and start to look elsewhere for the salvation. You stumble upon this page, someone says that the kingdom of heaven is within you. You've heard it a million times. You think that this person's trying to indoctrinate you even more. You'll be skeptical. You'll be uncertain with what's being told to you until you realize that what this person is saying is just a channeling of a specific frequency that's been said for thousands of years, that you are the kingdom of heaven, that it is within you, and it is the imagination, that it knows no bounds. And that I, as an egoic self, as a lowercase ego, have no say as to where you go in that imagination. You could decide not to go into it. You could deny it all you want, or you could give it full-blown attention. I can't do anything about it. Therefore, I don't control anything that has to do with your manifestation. And that gives me a position as an educator, because I can safely and carefully educate you into understanding your truth by letting you know I have absolutely no say when it comes to your happiness. And as long as you see me this way, you'll start to see everything else that way, and you will come into your power by taking control over your manifestation. And that will be your greatest day. And it can be right now. It can be right now. All you have to do is imagine yourself as wish fulfilled. That's all you have to do. Not wish fulfilled in the future, not reminiscing about some situation from the past where you believed to have everything and now you don't. That's the ego trying to convince you you're doing the right work, but it wants to live off of your time. No, you actually become that wish-fulfilled self right now, the billionaire, the perfect health, the wish-fulfilled love, the vacationer, the creator, the person of service. Whatever it is, you could be the opposite. Everyone's got a different game to play. Like I said before, the subconscious mind just carries you through aliveness no matter where you go, no matter what you do, and everyone's going to choose different things. So that might be my desire, is to see that unity of consciousness with everyone, and it might be your desire to see the exact opposite, and I'm not judging you for it. It's your own personalized kingdom that you imagine. Now what will happen is our timelines likely will not cross. You might see me die. You might think that I'm obliterated, and you might celebrate it even. That will be your own course of how you're playing the game of life. But what you do not understand is every single one of us woke up this morning, no matter what kind of dream or life situation we were living in our dream, and they were all different. We all woke up into consciousness. We were carried back into the body. We had no say over the matter as far as an egoic self. That's why I'm saying to you, whether you witness my obliteration or not, or witness my happiness or not, I continue because my faith is in that, rather than I am fearful of you taking away everything that I believe in and love. If I did that, then I would start the game over again, most likely. That's my belief. I would incarnate again. But the moment that I believe that nothing can interfere with my wish fulfillment in the imagination, you may perceive through your own wishes and your own trajectory in life my complete and total obliteration. But that is your truth. It's not mine. We have a different branch, a timeline that changes, in which you have perceived me as that, and I continue. So if you're listening to me right now, understand that you're listening to a version of me who has died endless times. Endless times I've died. And where you're seeing me now as alive is one of the highest versions of whatever my possibility is as human. I'm living one of the highest forms of what I can be. So just know that you have a great resource before you, because many, including my own children, have, in certain instances of multiverse realities, have already perceived me as dead. Multiple people tried to take my life. Multiple people experienced it and witnessed it and saw it and carried on gloriously celebrating it, I'm sure. But this timeline is one where I am still alive before you, which means an evolved version of myself now presents you with the knowledge that gives you at least the same amount of conscious experience as far as illumination as I have had. It's a beautiful position to be in, to be here as a viewer right now. You are given this gift, just as I am given this gift with you. That's what's beautiful about this. We likely are all coming from a deep-stated place of pain remembrances with deep pain bodies, but we've transmuted a lot of things. That's why we're crossing paths synchronistically. That's why we are here. So it's a beautiful time to be celebrating the aliveness, because now at this point in time, we have leapt into the imagination. We get to witness unified consciousness on planet Earth. This is within our lifetime now, since we know our consciousness would never let us down, and we can just glide through in our wish-fulfilled state of being and enrich the lives of other people. Understanding this truth and being where we are right now is an epic, high-level, legendary character that we've come into being that isn't common. That's the best part. Mom Hacks Daily is one of those. Galinda as well. Thanks for following. Big Chief, blessings to you. Galinda, blessings to you. Lucky Dad of 13. Sounds like Elon Musk. Thanks for sharing. Frank, thanks for following. Rachel's here. Great to see you, Rachel. Thanks for sharing. Galinda agrees. I'm glad. Erica Dunyan, thanks for following. There's Overhoff, mentions your resurrection. It's yours too, Overhoff. We've all made it to this point in the game. We're legendary characters. We get to see the unification of human consciousness. This is an amazing game to be playing. We get to see unity consciousness occur, living in duality. It's like witnessing the ultimate sunrise, one that can only be seen once. And it's wonderful. Big E says it makes things come into focus. Good, Big E. If you understand that we do not have a soul, we are the soul in human form. Indeed, we are. We are unity consciousness already have occurred, but we're living out a life experience in duality because it's our choice. Okay, so I'm getting a text message from my mom saying, please do not pour grease down the sink. Is this the present moment? Or is this the past? Or is this the future? That was a text message that just came in. I want you folks to tell me, which part of me is manifesting that message? This is going to put it to the test. That way we can be aware with it. I think I caught up with everyone. It says I've been live for 90 minutes. Jam Pam, thanks for following. Monica says, somebody finally makes sense. Sending love and light to all, says Divine Mother. And user 7280842839938 sends a bunch of butterflies. Divine Mother says it's the past. We got a lot of answers coming in the past. It's the past. It's the past. Peleus got a text message too. It is the past. Because right now in this present moment, I'm having a life experience with you all where the sun is beaming and we can perceive God's manifold expression, at least in a localized way. Through your screen, you can see me having a localized experience of being in the woods. Yet I have a text message coming in saying, please do not pour grease down the sink because it clogs it, as if it's happening then. So then the question becomes, where is my mother in her consciousness? Is she awake or is she asleep? Is she conscious or is she unconsciously creating time for personal entertainment? And of course, you're all going to say the past again. So the question then becomes, why do we do this? When she knows that I'm clearly out in the woods right now broadcasting. Why do we do this? And it is because the feeling of separateness in trying to control external circumstances by somehow dominating them or forcing upon regulations and rules is coming from a feeling of lack that is self-induced by convincing oneself through the imagination in the creation of time that there is lack, that somehow my behavior poses a threat to her well-being by doing something that isn't even happening. So this tells you a lot about time. It tells you that, first of all, in the future, most of these situations never occur and never will. Okay? 1, the sink does not clog. 2, grease is not going down it. Yet, my mother is creating in a form of separateness, which is effectively my ego creating separation between myself and the embodiment of God that is my mother, creating that separation first. In order for there to be a story and a dialogue, that has to happen first. So I have to use the imagination to say, this text message is coming from some place of truth. When the fact of the matter is, for the text message to arrive, it would have already had to been transmitted, typed out, thought, felt, and then transmitted to my phone. I would then have to read it, still in time, entertain it enough to believe that it is real, and to also be invested in it enough to want to fight it because I feel threatened, because I've been judged in some way, that I'm not doing the right thing. See how all that happens, all unconsciously. At the same time, that's all occurring. But if you come into being, you can witness all of this. You can witness the entire truth. Galinda says, Lol, so true. Thank you for getting on today smiling. I came across you today. Thank you, Galinda. It's not every day that I'm all bright smiles, but I do feel great today. Yes, Galinda says it interrupts, forcing you to try to put you into a place of story, of dialogue, of identifying things because there's somehow a perceived threat. And this comes down to the bottom line, folks. If you feel judged by someone, and it brings up a feeling of pain to where you're saying no to it and resisting it, it is because innately, deep down, the ego feels a threat to its life. It feels threatened. And if you were to no longer define that as a threat, it would no longer have any control over you, and your use of the imagination would return to the present moment, and you would feel aliveness and you would heal. But it can't have that, because it will experience its own death. It has too much momentum to let go of that. It wants to hold on at all costs. Maybe Me says, after death, are there individual souls or blended into one? This is a great question. Let's get into it. Daniel says, I too have jumped through many different timelines, parallel realities. We cannot change the physical mirror, a physical mirror. We're constantly coming and going through a state of subatomic phenomena. We just don't see it because the refresh is so fast. But we are essentially flickering as holographic entities, having a tactile sensory experience right now. It's just happening so fast through microtubules in the body, through our neurons. But there is an infinite intelligence of matter collapsing from a unified state into a local reality. But it is holographic. And the holographic information is stored in our DNA and projected through it, through biophotons, through the cells, as well as light that we receive from external sources works in conjunction. So in effect, we're kind of like a prism. The question is, after death, are there individual souls or blended into one? So there are two answers to this. The first answer is, if you believe, whatever you feel the most and you believe the most will likely impress you with some form of truth that you will come into believing because it's what you desired. So if you believe there to be separation, you'll probably perceive it. If you believe there to be wholeness, you'll probably also perceive that. That's why I've said to you, this version of myself is the most advanced of my life experiences in given memory. Therefore, I will likely experience, because I keep saying it and declaring it and believing it to be truth, I am experiencing unified consciousness in this lifetime because it's my desire, because it's my declaration. So if you're asking me, my belief is that we already have unity consciousness. It comes in the form of the cosmic consciousness or the sea of consciousness, and each and every one of us is having a localized experience as powered by our imagination. But the imagination itself is the unified field which knows no bounds. It's superposition. It's string theory explained. All of us are fed by it. We're all created by it. And we all return to it when we collapse back in, or we return or expand back into the unified field once we're done having our life experience. But the truth of the matter is, this is happening all the time, coming and going. We're constantly collapsing down into form and going back into the unified field. Anytime you step into the imagination, you're having a prolonged return to the unified field. That's why it's so powerful. Because if you have a prolonged return to source, then you start to become that more through your paying attention to it. We become what we think about. So if you're spending more time in the unified field through the imagination, living a wish-fulfilled life, then you're leaving a very powerful blueprint with the subconscious to realize it. Trying to do that while you're living in the waking life is like trying to change the course of the sea by slapping it or doing circles with your boat. It's not going to change the tides. What truly changes the tide is seeing it as changed in the mind of God through the imagination. So that's what I'm trying to explain to you. It's like the baby in the womb grows without our supervision or our interference. Like our parents aren't going in and saying, we're going to make sure that these cells split in this way and form the heart and form the immune system and the spinal cord and the amniotic fluid. It's like our parents are not doing those things. We don't have the intelligence to do it. The intelligence is superior to our identity, and it is the creator of our identity as well. So to believe that we somehow have to have a plan and be in control is the same thing as my mother living in illusion by sending me a text message that's somehow going to change her situation. She's spending all of her time right now thinking about how I'm either going to resist her, and that's coming from my own ego, from the connection between us as co-creators. We have this story, this timeline built to where she already is believing I'm going to resist her at all costs. It's going to lead to more conflict. And so damned if I do, damned if I don't. There's too much momentum going with her right now, constantly perseverating about conflict happening. So she doesn't want resolution to the conflict. If she wanted resolution to the conflict, it would be managed through her imagination internally. What she wants is a perpetuation of it because it's attention-seeking behavior. I could define it as that. It gives her a feeling of excitement that she doesn't normally have unless she creates problems. This is why people become addicted to their problems and have love relationships with them, because it's the only time that we actually feel things. And we've been reinforced this through our own error, and especially over the course of the pandemic and with woke ideology especially has to do with creating polarity and separateness between people more than unity, I would argue. It's constantly seeking a way to create this false sense of unity through creating separation between each other, which says everything that is outside of me in some way is a threat unless I control it. That's the mindset of the woke ideology. And so the problem with that is that everything is perceived as a threat and there's no real unity that ever comes. Therefore, there's no resolution to problems, but there's always the promise that there will be if you control someone, or if you control something, or if you shut someone down, or if you get them to bend the knee, if you physically force them or cancel them or shut them down, somehow you will be safe, somehow you will be saved. And because we've been living in this for so many years now, we've now come in to believe that that is actually our salvation, while internally the cells are experiencing death and cancer, like literally experiencing an environment of war constantly that cannot be resolved at all because the individual using the imagination is constantly perceiving conflict occurring and seeing things as separate as God. So right now, God to my mother is me. Think of this. To my mother right now, I am God to her because she's giving me all of her power of the imagination by believing that I'm going to be in conflict with her. She totally believes that I'm the cause of her problems. And by believing that someone is the cause of your problems, no matter what they're doing, you're giving them all of your power. And I can't explain this to people any clearer, that if you want to have relief from your problems, you have to stop giving people your power. It's the same as blaming someone or a situation for your woes. It is the same as giving them your infinite power. And I would not do that with any human being because no one's in the position, just like I said, no parent's in the position to manage your gestation in the womb. It's an infinite intelligence that's involved in the creation of things, not the human body and not the human ego. It's a construct. It's just an idea. It's not an idea in the mind of God, really, as much as it's an idea in the mind of man fearing obliteration, thinking this is one life to live. It's an illusion. So I pray that this resonates. I thank everyone who's given so much love. We have 19,300 times love, these love bubbles coming up. So thank you. Lucky Dad of 13 says, Wolf of Danger Ego and Wolf of Love Heart, whichever one you feed grows. You become what you think about. So yes, we are feelings. We're beings of feeling. We're addicted to that. And if we perceive the external world, which is actually the result of our thoughts and the imagination, if we see that as the cause of our problems, then we have essentially decided to become a slave to them. By giving all of our power of the imagination to external circumstances, we shut off our connection with the infinite intelligence. We become unconscious, and thus we go on autopilot, believing ourselves to be victims. And we do it because it feels better than the fear of not knowing what happens when we're just present as alive. So many people are fearful of that we mask it with drugs and substances and arguments and gossip and constant busyness and planning, to where we can't actually come to being present as witnessing our aliveness. We have to constantly be labeling things, judging things, pointing fingers, in order to create separateness out of the fear of death, which is only an illusion. Every one of us experienced some sort of timeline last night when we were asleep. Whether it was lucid or not, you did, and you woke up this morning. But it wasn't you, and it wasn't the alarm. It was the infinite intelligence decidedly bringing you back into your body. You had no say over the moment or that process, just as you had no say as far as your expansion in the womb, which states something very clearly. 1, consciousness does not die and constantly accompanies you. 2, there's nothing that you can do better than it to resolve your issues or to expand and grow, but leave it alone and just observe. There's no better way to heal your issues, heal your problems, and overcome challenges and difficulties other than just leaning in as an observer, as a non-participating observer, non-judgmentally observing your aliveness without having to define it. That's called peace and presence. They are one and the same. This is your salvation. And if you can't be still in this moment, which many can't because there's so much damn momentum from the chaos, this is why we have our backup. It's called the imagination. You step into it and you start to build a construct within you that is you as the wish-fulfilled self. And you can do this sandbox journey anytime you want without restriction or delay. And it is there for you because it literally is Christ, and it serves as your salvation. When the shit hits the fan and you're unable to stay still because it's so damn triggering, you can always step in through the narrow gates and go to that place of your wish-fulfilled self and plant massive seeds of wish fulfillment until your heart's content with it. That's the beauty. So you have two choices in the matter. 2 ways to manage this. One is in presence by not defining what is unfolding before you as God's manifold expression. Before it had a meaning, it doesn't anymore. That's an advanced state of consciousness, okay? Or you can use your imagination. You put cotton in your ears, you put some headphones on, you go take a walk in the woods, just like I do every day. The text messages are going to still come in, but at the same time, I know the origin of them. I created the text message, and it was an invitation from my ego self, which is based in pain and totally illusion, trying to entice me back into the creation of time, so that I give up on my aliveness and give my power over to something that's totally not even real. Now that I'm aware of this as an observer of my aliveness, I heal from it. It unwinds. It receives compassion. And I don't have to have any expectation of how my mother's going to act. She's just an embodiment of God, making her own decisions to manifest the things she desires. Her game is the game of victimhood. I'm not judging, as much as it's truth. My game is the game of liberation. Is one better than the other? No. But one comes with relief where the other comes from suffering. Comes with it. Undeniably. When you're embedded in time, when you're going to bed with time and you make it your lover, then it feeds you pain perpetually. And it never offers any solution unless it is revised through your awareness in the now, either that way, which is an advanced state of consciousness as an observer, Or you use the imagination to rewrite the scenario by seeing yourself totally changed and different, living from the end in your wish fulfillment. By doing that, you also change it because you're not here anymore. Remember, when you're not here and you're not interfering, everything falls into place. Very important. You're no different than being in the womb right now. That's why when you go to sleep at night and your ego finally takes a rest for a third of your life, your body heals the most because you're giving it rest. This is it. This is how you heal. You have to give it rest. There's Overhoff says, send your mother love. Absolutely. I'm imagining my mother right now being in a perfect home where she has all the space in the world and whomever she wants to have present is there, giving her attention in the way that she wants. However, I am not there. I just want you to know, because it doesn't give me any satisfaction to imagine myself continuing to be in this situation. That doesn't satisfy me. So as much as she may be saying things seeking attention, and I use this as an example, it is a manifestation of my past when I made errors. It's no longer the part of who I am in my mind. Therefore, I do not see myself interacting with my mother in this way. I instead see her as just very happy to see me successful, very happy to be healthy too. I see her as complete and whole, and that's how she manifests. But right now, it's got to unwind. I mean, we're talking about probably one of the deepest seeds of pain in my body has to do with my mother. She brought me into this world. And I'm telling you right now that where I am is the most evolved state of being that I've ever been in my life. This is my high level version of myself. So this is probably one of the last pain remembrances that has to be overcome by me letting it go. So by saying, send love to her is great, but don't make it like it must happen. As much as me going there and seeing my mother happy is better than me trying to force love to her and say, yeah, I do love her. But sometimes she's just so frustrating. No, it's just imagine her happy. If you're imagining her happy, then we have coherence and it magnifies the impact. And miracles happen very fast. This is the way to do it. But I get the sentiment too. I know where that's coming from. It's like she's probably elderly. You're likely looking at me and saying, this is William. I can judge him based on his character. He's in his 40s. He's got to figure things out still. So all these labels have been made. And then there are labels made about my mother based on only seeing one side of the coin. And all of this is egoic story. So instead, it's like, okay, let's center and let's go to a place that is perceived wish fulfillment for self. And I'm just imagining my mother having the most beautiful functioning kitchen that no one ever interferes with. It's like, that's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. There never was a story to begin with, that kind of thing. That's the revision of it. There never was an issue, there never was lack, there never was restriction, there never was discord or argument. There was never a need for an example to be made. No need to control, none of those things, because it's just pure bliss. And I know this in truth about my mother. Because when I grew up, I did a bunch of things that probably would drive her crazy, but she was tolerant of them because I never self-consciously thought it was bothering her. But now, because I've had so many situations of building up my pain body around being affected by what people think of me and fearing judgment and being affected by that, like the greatest demons that still exist as far as shadow self, come in the form of these manifestations. So it kind of reminds me that I'm on the tail end of liberation from ego. The biggest one being like my fear of being judged. And so it's fine. It's like, I get it now. I can understand why it would be manifesting. I can totally see how it would be manifesting. I got a nice, beautiful, open exposure to the sun right here that I want everyone to get a hold of. So I'm going to turn the camera here, flip it for a minute, so I can still read. And we can look at the sun together, do some sun gazing. Caden Ryan says, hello, beautiful souls. Caden, it's great to see you. Mom Joke says, cheers to that. I'm glad that it resonates with you all. And we have some followers coming through. Catherine, thank you for following. Pieces of Us, also, thank you for following. And Care Bear, thanks for your shares. And Overhoff, thank you for your compassion about my mother. And the same coming with Tina. All of you, I know where your compassion is. And I feel that as a priority. I feel your awareness. Adam says, peaceful. Good, Adam. Pinky, Silver Chloe, thanks for following. Diamond, you too, thanks for following. And Berlin, thank you for sharing. So many times too. Okay, Rebecca, you might not still be here, but if you haven't left, thank you for being here and blessings to you. Lucky Dad of 13 says, Wolf of Anger, okay, we're caught up here. We were there. Ariel, if I didn't catch you before, thanks for following. Maybe Me Nails It says, less ego means more unity with the Creator. That's right. Because of polarity. If you're not on the outlying, if you're not the outlying variable going through experiencing a lot of tension, then the opposite of this is unity. That's what you want. Oh, Lucky Dad of 13 says 144K. I've been seeing that a lot lately. Is mentioned as the complete human genome. Very cool. Abby, Spiritual Works. If I didn't catch you before, thanks for following. And let's get back to where we are. Mom Jokes, thank you for sharing and saying, hope you are so well, so kind. And we have just so many kindnesses coming through. Gail, thanks for sharing. And love to all of you. We've probably been going for about 2 hours now, which is great. It's a brisk, cold afternoon. And so basically the bottom line is this about consciousness, because this has been a long talk about it. When I refer to the subconscious, I'm referring to the earth. And when I'm referring to the Father, I'm referring to the Sun. Think of it like that which plants the seeds and explains what is to grow. Think of the mother as the earth, which is the receiving element or the womb. And think of your imagination as the source of all these things. So there's the I, which is source, the infinite imagination. There is the A from I am, which I described before as Abraham. This is the king of many kingdoms, self-realized through oneness with the seed of creation. Think of it as an infinite menu is your imagination. It just gives you an infinite menu of choices. And when you consciously go there and use it by becoming what it is you want, by enjoying the fruits that you want to enjoy, you are planting a seed in the mind of God, which is the womb of creation. This is the maternal element, the matrix meaning the womb. It's the womb of creation. And so by every time you use I am with any form of action word, any verb, you are in effect exercising your infinite power. Anytime you say I, you are making a command to the infinite, you are gaining its attention. And then when you say am, you have already set into motion the seed and the womb in their conception. Whatever follows that, as that, becomes the thing that is created. And then you receive the feedback returning from the infinite and the seed and the womb explaining to you that it's been listened to, the command has been received, and it's been programmed into the mind of God to manifest. So manifestation, or God, God's infinite creation, the command line for its access is I am. What follows it is that which you desire, and its infinite feedback loop back to you to tell you it is in motion, the order has been placed, it's on its way to you, is the return I am. So it's 3 parts. The Trinity in the manifestation comes in two ways. You have I as the first part of the Trinity, that's the infinite source. You have the A, which is the active or the ask, that's the masculine, that's the seed. And then you have the maternal matrix or womb, which is the M part of I am. That's the Trinity. It's in all of us. And we use it every time we use an action verb, or verb, which is a word of action. So an example would be, I have a hand, okay? This is the same as saying, I am in awareness of my presence in form. That's I have a hand. I am aware of the presence of my form. I am alive. I have a hand. To say I am perfect health is to exclaim that I am in awareness that my cells are functioning perfectly. They are functioning perfectly. I am wealthy is the same as saying I am in abundance, and I am abundance. I am wealth. And so if you hear the I am return, that is essentially one of two things. It could be you witness it before you, that's the return I am, and it's a great prompt to be grateful. But you can also go to that return I am by going into the imagination. You see the return already. You're living it from the end. That's the return I am. Also another opportunity to be very grateful. Not because you have to be grateful to the subconscious, because it needs that to once again express things. Like I said, it doesn't judge. But it also doesn't know what you want until you explain with your words that you desire it. You have to feel it. So by feeling it, you show gratitude. And by using your words, I am grateful that I have these things. You are declaring in truth that they belong to you. There's no separation between you and that thing. Therefore, the subconscious understands the loop is complete and it must be expressed. This is the importance of gratitude. You have to explain that it is desired and you want to see it continue. So try to pull yourself from sarcasm. Lucky Dad of 13's got to go. Great to see. Great to see you. Thank you. Overhoff says, I'm feeling joy and bliss. You are smiling. I can feel it. Yes. It's a wonderful realization to understand all of this power is in your control now. By stepping into the narrow gates of the imagination, you have control over your manifestation. It's instantaneously felt. And that ease is first felt by the cells of your body. The phenomena is called epigenetics. It's the cells believing there's been a change of environment that's already occurred. So when you go into the imagination, once again, the subconscious doesn't know the difference between your waking life and your imaginative life and your dream life. It just doesn't know the difference. All it knows is that you are having experiences, feeling things, and that impresses it. So whether you feel something in your imagination, whether you feel it in the past or in the future, whether you feel it in the now, you're leaving an impression on the subconscious to continue expressing that thing that you feel. When you use the imagination, you're using the highest form of your power. Therefore, it takes priority over the rest that is revealing itself here in the waking life. That's what's beautiful about a 5-minute meditation. It is more potent than a full day of misery. When you come to the end of your day, use the imagination to plant the seeds of truth by being grateful for the things that you desire, by having them. And what you will do is a very powerful form of revision over whatever issues might have occurred in the day. Instead of them leaving an echo with the subconscious because you haven't interfered with them, you have effectively rewritten them by believing that your wish fulfilled, thus undoing whatever the errors of the day were or believed to have been blunders on your behalf. This is the greatest form of self-love and self-forgiveness that you can offer yourself. At the end of every day, be grateful for the things that you imagine as real and dial in your wish fulfillment in perfection. And you will override whatever mistakes, whatever blunders or stumbles you've taken shall be rewritten because you're accessing them no longer, and you're revising them with a better state of being through the imagination, which is Christ. So you've essentially just removed all the weeds, tilled the earth, and planted the seeds of true value and worth before you go off to sleep. And when you go off to sleep, you detach from your ego self, and you are sending off this message to the subconscious that you are wish fulfilled and worthy of living a perfect, beautiful life. So it's a very important practice. Also, an important practice is to just be grateful for these very same things first thing in the morning, before there's any momentum with the distractions of the day. You go to that place of wish fulfillment in your mind before anything else occurs, before you get hung up on anything, whether it's your cell phone or any sort of life situation. Before it starts to build momentum first thing in the morning, return to your state of wish fulfillment and be thankful and grateful that you have those things. Last part of this is do not share it with anyone. There's no need to share these things with anyone. And the reason for this is you want to pray to your imagination in secret. Because if you start to explain to everyone the full details of the things that have yet to manifest, one, everyone will think you're crazy. Two, you will meet resistance from it. Everyone will want to see you fail and go against it at all costs. Not because they do not like you, not because they despise you or hate you, no, but because you have built up patterns over a lifetime thinking in lack until recently with the revision, that the momentum is there to resist you at all costs, to keep those things from coming into your life. So this is why you use the imagination in secret, and you pray in secret through meditation this way. And once everything manifests, well, it's already real. So share it just the way that you imagined doing it in your mind. No difference. But this is why you pray to the Lord in secret. Okay? Tina says that people don't understand, they'll bar your path, and they will probably be doing it unconsciously, simply because they are a result of your own wishes and feelings from the past, which had to do with lack. So this is why I'm trying to explain to you that whatever previous thought processes had been a priority in feeling and in action, whatever the habits were, whatever the old personality was that's being shed, that's going to perpetuate until the subconscious has a chance to till it all out and fix it. And that is just like you're leaving a wound to heal on its own, and you do your best by just not interfering with it. So that's what I mean when things manifest that are undesirable because they're no longer part of what you want. Like the example is the text message from my mother, right? So as that manifests, I can use this as an opportunity to say, okay, with presence, I can define this as much as I want with the ego for everyone to learn from an example. But at the same time, I must also take this a step further by stepping into my imagination and just seeing her bright and smiling, just like Overhoff said, I can imagine you smiling. I have to do the same thing for my mother. See her happy, wish fulfilled. Now I can go back to the place where she is, and I may see the opposite of that. I'm not going to think of that as who she is as a human being. It will be yet another opportunity for me to practice awareness and presence by understanding she's an embodiment of God, and also she's innocent in truth, and that this is a manifestation from my own thoughts, feelings, and convictions coming forth, reverberating because it has momentum. And that it is unwinding the more that I detach myself from the situation by no longer believing it to be my reality. And I go into the imagination by seeing her happy and seeing myself as happy. That's how you do the good work. Instead of running from it, just lean in. Lean in and observe the expressions happening before you without any judgment or label. As much as I said I might see the opposite in her face, once again, that is a creation based on my ego. So you see how tricky this can be if we're constantly trying to define things. This is why just observing aliveness and just being present, leaning in to hear it, to see it without judgment, is in effect stepping away and surrendering. You are surrendering to God's manifold expression, not the individual situation. You're not saying yes or no to the situation. You're saying, I'm not there. I'm not there. As fortified by me being on the beach right now. I am not there. I am on the beach. That's it. This is how we overcome our pain remembrances as we are building newfound patterns for our wish fulfillment. Karen, thank you for following. Rain says, that's so deep and makes sense. I'm glad. Pinky, thanks for the ice cream cone. All the gifts coming in today. You're all unbelievably generous. NAFX, nice to see you again. Thanks for being here. The Matrix grants your wish. What a beautiful name. Diamond Queen. Diamond Queen is here. Just remember that you are loved. You matter. You are amazing. That is beautiful. Thank you, Diamond Queen. Everyone go check out Diamond Queen's page and follow. We're coming to the end of this broadcast. This is the time to do it. Thanks for the heart me, Diamond Queen. Rain says, I've been so confused, so thank you. Oh, you're more than welcome. Yes, you're more than welcome. Just understand that when we try to make sense of things, it really doesn't lead to any conclusion. So the best thing to do is to use your God-given gift, which is the imagination, to imagine yourself being totally wish-fulfilled right now without delay. That is the greatest treatment that you can give yourself in the form of self-love and forgiveness, and the forgiveness of others, is by seeing that as real now, no matter what the world says, to keep going there against all odds, and to not share it with a single person in detail until it manifests before you. At that point in time, share it with everyone because it is real for the rest. Libby says, thank you for this. Thank you. This all resonated deeply. You're more than welcome. I appreciate you too, Diamond Queen. God bless you. Germ, thanks for following. Kaylee's here. Hey, Kaylee. Welcome. We got chickadees all around right now. They're all chirping. Oh, I heard a pedestrian somewhere. Oh, here's a dog. Woman Patriot says, God bless you. Splishy's following. Hello. Hi. Splishy, thanks for following with the shamrock. There's Overhoff says, we are healing. Indeed we are. We are all healing as co-creators. We have coherence with that healing. You have all brought me to a place where I can be more compassionate in the situations of my life, for which I am most grateful. And we can use this as a springboard to our personalized salvation, whatever it is for us. It's all unique for each and every one of us, and we're just bringing ourselves to that point of salvation indeed. Divine Mother says, I love you all. We are all connected. Indeed, we are. Woman Patriot says, God bless you. God bless you too. That is so kind to say. And so let's come to our conclusion here. Love, light, and unity from Woman Patriot. I agree. We are all one. We all have our salvation within us, welcoming us. And the last part of this is not to discard and throw away these identities of ours. They've been with us for so long, our identified self, but instead to take ownership over it, because it was created for us by our parents and by our guardians and by our society. Our educators created our identity through our name. All I ask is that we, as observers of our aliveness, as consciousness itself, we come in to become the owners and proprietors of our identity again. And by doing that, we are in effect showing our inner child great love as being guardians and executors of our lives. So instead of seeing our identity as alone and victimized by external circumstances, we understand that we are now creating the path for this beautiful vessel, and we show the greatest form of self-love by giving it respite from all of this pain and suffering through our imagination and through our witnessing of aliveness without defining it or labeling it, without creating time. We give ourselves relief from the suffering, and as we give our identities relief from the suffering, it will eventually ease itself into a state of being to where it too no longer fears death and obliteration and simply surrenders itself to Source, at which point you will be not begotten by man, one in being with your creation. And that will be the ultimate win for this life on earth. And it is within you. All of this is within you. It already exists, just awaiting your manifestation. Love, light, and unity indeed. We are healing. So everyone, coming to a conclusion here on this afternoon, here's what you can expect from me. Aside from my deep gratitude for all of you tuning in on this afternoon, evening in New England. On my YouTube page, you will find today's broadcast at some point tonight or early tomorrow before I broadcast again. I usually go live sometime between 12:30 and 1 Eastern for 2 hours, sometimes 3. Like today is closer to 3 hours, depending on life situations, circumstances. But all is to say, you will find this recording, and I will begin starting to do the screen record so that we can get dialogue flowing and everyone can see what the questions are. And it will be a better transmission on the YouTube page. But you'll find my YouTube link in my bio. Please do follow. I think we're at 940-ish followers at this point. Once we get to 1,000, I believe I can monetize the channel and start to get some return on investment. I think I've had the channel open since, I don't know, 2011, 2010. So it's been a long journey, but I would love to see more followers come by to take part in the posts there. You'll also find ASMR on my channel, a bunch of old ASMR videos, and you'll also find some music and some writing. So a bit of everything that I do, you'll find there. All right, folks, look at this shine right here. We're coming to our conclusion now. Lisa says, love ASMR. Yeah, it's pretty relaxing. It's pretty relaxing indeed. All right. David, thanks for following. Yes, you'll find ASMR there for sure, Lisa. All right, everyone. That's it for today. You're going to see this live broadcast. Thanks for all the love that came through, all 25,800 times. And to all the viewers and followers that came in, Molly, thanks for following. Thank you so much, Sunflower. Thank you, Lisa. Blessings to all of you. Thank you, David Reed. All of you incredible people, thanks for being here, present today. I love you all. I'll see you tomorrow in the afternoon, Eastern time, and you can expect this on YouTube tonight. Blessings to you all. May your wishes be fulfilled. Keep giving yourself that vacation through the imagination to feel wish fulfilled and have the perfect day. God bless you all. I love you all.